but at the same time, somebody is being a little bit rankled by a lot of what we discussed. Mr. DeSantis is in Tokyo for some reason, I don't know exactly why, and was asked about his declining poll numbers, had a bizarre response. Here's what he had to say.
Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Oof, I don't know what's going on there, Krystal. He seemed, okay, so here's my thing. A, obviously annoyed. B,
very irritated.
Irritated. He also, I think it's kind of getting to him a little bit with the media attention. Look, I could be reading into it. That said, he's usually a little bit more calm, poised, and collected, but you're also coming off probably your worst month yet on a national level from the abortion legislation, which, you know, any objective person could admit that that was a disaster. I actually was reading this morning an interview with Congressman Lance Gooden. This guy is full-blown pro-Trump. He's one of those people who endorsed Trump immediately after the meeting with DeSantis. He did an interview with the New Yorker, and actually, he literally said this. He goes, look, I'm from a conservative district. I support a national ban on abortion, but DeSantis just signed this legislation, and strictly politically, that's not popular.
Wow.
So to look at that, you can go read it for yourself.
Wow, that's incredible.
Is an insane quote.
Wow.
And really, Krystal also got to kind of bad-mouthing DeSantis for his lack of personal politics that Trump simply appears to be at least much more of a master of than DeSantis. And it actually highlights a big problem that DeSantis faces. Put this up there on the screen. I actually thought this was handled quite well. Maggie Haberman from the New York Times. She writes, DeSantis faces Republican scrutiny on issues while Trump skates by. Republican voters seem to be grading Trump on a curve in his third presidential campaign, while Governor Ron DeSantis faces a more traditional form of scrutiny. And it's true. Let's think about it. You know, Trump changes his mind literally every day on Ukraine. One day we're supposed to bomb them and spark a war between Russia and China. The other day he's like the greatest dove that the world has ever seen. DeSantis issues like a heavily calculated answer to Tucker Carlson, then faces pushback, and then comes out and then changes his tune a little bit. That's actually something Trump does all the time. But DeSantis gets hammered for it by his political allies in the media and in general also by the conservative press. On abortion, right? Same thing. Trump literally wants us to believe he's not, you know, he's more pro-choice than Ron DeSantis. It's like, dude, you appointed all three of the judges, or sorry, pro-life. You appointed all three of the justices who overturned Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
Who are we kidding here?
Yeah,
you can't have it both ways. But somehow he manages to have it both ways. Now, we do not cut him any slack here on the show. But in the mind of voters, I think it's just simply impossible because Trump is a cultural figure, DeSantis is a politician.
Yeah.
They're simply different. I really don't know what to tell you.
And also, at the beginning, Trump has already sort of been through the phase of getting covered like sort of like a normal politician would, where you would, you know, really take his statements and they would generate their own news cycles, et cetera. And now there's just a lot of fatigue around that. And so people just sort of are like, yeah, whatever, that's Trump. And even on the attacks against DeSantis, you know, this is a phenomenon that we have pointed out here. DeSantis does the little mildest, like, you know, I don't really know anything about hush money to porn stars. And everybody freaks out. Trump is out here calling DeSantis a groomer. I mean, now he's saying Florida is like some hellhole. It's just, he goes all in every single day, and everyone just kind of like laughs and chuckles about it and moves on.
Yeah, including me.
Yeah,
I can't help but laugh, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, and part of it is he's a cultural figure versus a political figure. Part of it is he just has a skill to pull it off, you know? And DeSantis feels like a normal, like carefully calibrating, judging his words, calculating politician. That's what he feels like. And so that is the way that he is ultimately graded. And it makes it so it is impossible to go against someone who is being judged on a totally different grading scale. It's, you know, it's not going to be an easy thing to pull off.
Yeah, certainly I think it's going to be very, very difficult there politically. And just to reference like what you're saying, let's put this up there on the screen. This is the latest Trump campaign release about DeSantis. It's unbelievable. I can't help laughing. The real DeSantis record is one of misery and despair. He has left a wake of destruction all across Florida. People are hurting because he has spent more time playing public relations game instead of actually doing the hard work needed to improve the lives of the people that he represents.
Incredible.
And, you know, he actually even issued one last night, which is so funny. He is going against the Club for Growth. He says, the globalist, China-hawking, rhino-infiltrating Club for Growth, which now wants to give backing to Ron DeSantis, they realize there is no personality or people skills there, are beside themselves. They don't know what to do. Florida has the sun and the ocean was great long before I put Ron there. The semi-elite no-growthers are considering sending Ron to the great Walter Reed Medical Center for an emergency personality transplant. His poll numbers are collapsing. I mean, I don't really know how you deal with that, you know, and DeSantis clearly is getting rattled. It reminds me of the way that Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio were in the primary. They just didn't know what to do with this guy because they were, you know, used to like a cookie cutter operating. And I think people who like Ron DeSantis always take this as in criticism of the man. Listen, he clearly, he won 20 points in the gubernatorial race.
Yeah.
He's got a talent, statewide talent, no question. Trump is simply on another level. And sometimes you just have to realize that whenever you're playing a game, you know, there's sometimes people are just much more gifted, much more talented, have built-in advantages that you simply will never have as a traditional Yale Law School military. You know, DeSantis is like that guy in student council who always wanted to be president. And Trump is just Trump. And he ended up being president despite himself. They're just different, you know, in the eyes of the public.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
DeSantis, the thing that he has been very effective at is identifying where the like cultural outrages in the Republican base are and coming up with some sort of strategy to put himself at the center of those discussions using legislation, using press conferences. But those are all sort of planned, choreographed set pieces that he's able to execute on very effectively, right, with people around him and coming up with his talking points and being able to sort of roll this out under his own control. It's a very different thing when you are taking, you know, live fire in real time. It's just a totally different skill set. And to me, it appears that DeSantis doesn't really have that particular skill set. That's why we're talking about how Biden has limited his time with the press because of his aging and concerns from his aides that he's going to step in it every time that he gets in front of the camera. You know, I think there's a similar concern around Ron DeSantis, who also has been very unavailable to the press outside of really friendly, you know, cushy Fox News interviews with his best allies over there or other Rupert Murdoch properties. And we know that Murdoch reportedly sat down with DeSantis and his wife even before the 2020 election and told them, like, we're going to be behind you. So, yeah, those are the quote-unquote journalists that he sits with for interviews. So to go back to that clip that we started with, it's a small moment, you know, you don't want to make too much of a big deal of it, but it shows a level of irritation and inability to handle like real-time live fire that could be very difficult for him because, you know, this is an obvious question. How are you not ready for the most obvious question that you know you're going to get asked? Now imagine yourself on a stage with Donald Trump. Who knows what the hell that dude is going to throw at you? So if you can't handle this like really obvious basic question from, you know, some random journalist in Japan, how do you think you're going to be able to handle that situation?
I'm not a candidate. I'm really happy to be here in Tokyo working for the people of Florida. Next question.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
And just, keep the visual, because part of, if you're only listening, you don't see like his mannerisms are the thing that is very unsettling in that clip.
Very much so. I'll put the last one up here on the screen. I just think it's so funny. An ex-GOP congressman says Ron DeSantis didn't say, quote, a single word to him for 2 years as they sat beside each other during House hearings. Quote, he's just a very arrogant guy. Now, you could say that this is one person. I'm telling you, I have asked around behind the scenes. Everybody says the exact same thing. I'm talking about members of Congress. And some of it is bleeding into the press. That Congressman Lance Gooden, who I referenced, same interview, he said it, honestly, he was very honest. He was like, look, DeSantis is a guy who after work didn't want to grab a beer, and would go home, FaceTime his wife and his kids. And that's great that you want to be a family man. But here in Washington, every time that you give up a social engagement, you're giving up potential political capital and the ability to make allies. I think he's right. At the end of the day, I think he's true. That's why I do actually think being a congressman on a day-to-day basis sounds like a miserable experience. Yeah. But let's put that aside. If you are a power-hungry drunk, this is a great place to be. And, you know, and,
who doesn't really care about being around your kids?
If you don't like your children and you don't like your wife, this is a fantastic place to be here in Washington. You can eat for free for 5 days a week, and you can drink premium liquor on somebody else's dime, namely like the aircraft industry or whatever. And look, he didn't appear to be interested in that. Now, on a personal level, I like that. On an insider level, though, if you're not going to be Trump, like this huge, large-than-life figure, then you do kind of have to play that game. Bill Clinton was a master of the game. Actually, one of the reasons that Obama was not very successful as a president on the legislative level is Obama used to do the same thing. He used to go home and have dinner with his kids every single day at 6 p.m. Again, as a father, as a family person, I empathize with that, you know, for somebody who's doing that. But, you know, as a president, well, you probably shouldn't just be president whenever you have small children, to be honest. You
Listen,
know, look,
I'm team B with the kids.
Yeah,
right?
me too.
I'll
But,
be,
you know,
I'll be at my daughter's soccer game later today, right? But, you know, the problem for DeSantis, though, is it goes beyond him being, like, family man and just wanting to be with his kids and being maybe a little socially awkward or natural introvert or whatever. Because what comes out, especially in this anecdote that we had up a minute ago about how it wasn't just he didn't say a word to this guy, it was that this dude was brand new in Congress, and DeSantis didn't introduce him, so it didn't make him feel welcome. His impression certainly was that DeSantis is not just socially awkward, that he's an asshole. Like, that's the impression that he got from these interactions. And there's another Rolling Stone piece that has quotes from people who used to work for DeSantis and were some of his aides and are now on the Trump campaign and have made it their explicit mission to destroy him and rattle his cage before he ever gets in the race. Clearly, it's having an impact and having an effect. And it's the same thing. They say, you know, it was an open joke whether or not he even knew our names. And these were people that were traveling with him. I mean, I think of this with regard to, like, the media industry. There are news hosts out there who they don't know their cameraman's name. They don't know the makeup artist's name. And everybody hates those people.
And
those
everybody knows a story.
Everybody knows who they are. They're total assholes. They're total arrogant pricks. And by the way, the minute that there is an opening to stick the knife in, guess what people do? And to me, that's what this flood of anti-DeSantis anecdotes looks like right now.
That's right.
Now that he's fallen off in the polls, now that it looks like the writing is on the wall, first of all, like almost the entire Florida Republican delegation has run into Trump's arms. They're leaking all these stories to the press. Sometimes they're even willing to put their names on it, which is astonishing. That tells me that, listen, whether it was deserved or not, the impression that a lot of people who worked with Ron DeSantis got of him was not just he's awkward and he's a family man. Like, no, we actively dislike this person.
I actually think that traveling anecdote tells you a lot. I've been around these types of politicians. You know, you have dinner with somebody, they bring their staff, and they don't even look or acknowledge with them. And I remember being like, are you a psycho? Like, these people don't want to be here.
These people are like part of your life. You spend more time with them than you do your kids and your family.
Right. And that's the norm. The people who are nice to their staff are, you know, they're far and few between. And so, yeah, anyway, I think it's really weird and obvious. And also, if you don't have that skill set like that we're discussing here, where you at least have the ability to charm the people around you who are in power whenever you need them. Well, if you're both arrogant and you're not, you know, at least a good, like, connector, a people person here in D.C., you're going to have a tough time. Yeah. And clearly that's what's happening here.
And I think that's important because it's not like Trump's not an asshole. Like, obviously, he's been a prick to a million people as well. But somehow, again, he gets away with it. And he has the charm to sort of, like, smooth things over after the fact. I mean, you see this with, like, you know, he said, he told Ted Cruz his wife was ugly and whatever, but he's able to somehow smooth that over and bring Ted Cruz back into the fold.
That's what he does.
I don't know what skill level that is. It's, you know, sort of a disaster that he apparently has that skill set, but anyway, That's how I see things.
There you go.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.